Thank you so much. Glad to be here. And since we only have 30 minutes, let me just say a few preliminary words before launching straight into my presentation. Actually, I think I'll be the unplugged version of the session because I will not have any slides. I'm sure you've had plenty of slides before and we'll have plenty of slides, so you have to bear with me and hope to be entertaining enough. Those who usually or have seen talks from me before know that I usually give talks impromptu without any script. I usually just talk about the things I'm interested in without using any papers. However, today is a bit different because to detour a little bit, right now is not only for Haitian Vodou but other traditions as well. The period of worshipping the ancestors and the cult of the dead. The gay day spirits of Haitian Vodou are being venerated in this season. So this kind of work has already begun for me, which of course coincides with the topic of my talk. And so the other day when I was actually engaged in some of these workings, after one of those works, just 2 days before I arrived here, I spontaneously wrote down this text here, which is basically the text of the session, of this particular talk. And it is, on one hand, an informative text, but on the other hand, it's a kind of meditation. So since I don't have slides, and since I never usually use them, use it as a kind of meditation, a type of praxis where you maybe just relax and allow the words as echoes of the voices of the spirits to kind of like present themselves to you and maybe feel how they anchor or not. But this was a blessing of the spirits to me and in this way to you, so that's my offering to you people here tonight. So we only have 30 minutes, let me just launch right into it. Let's begin with a quote, and it's by no other than Martin Heidegger. In the Black Forest farmhouse, there still stands the long table at which the family gathers. Here, the child is baptized. Here, the meal is eaten. Here, the body of the dead is laid out before being carried to the churchyard. The carpenter who makes the table also makes the coffin. The same hands form both. In certain regions, a coffin is still called a death tree, Totenbaum. The death of the deceased flourishes in it. And I will read this text entirely as a meditative exercise. There, in that simple Black Forest image, the whole human relation to death is condensed. The Totenbaum is not a denial, but the living continuity between birth and decay. One gesture, one wood, one pair of hands unites the table of communion with the coffin of return. Death flourishes because it belongs to life's texture. It is the dark sap that feeds the tree of being. The same hands that shape the vessel of nourishment fashion the vessel of departure. And in that double craft, the secret rhythm of existence is revealed. The peasant world still knew this rhythm. The dead lay in the same room where bread was broken, the same air filled with breath and incense. Death dwelt among the living, not as intrusion, but as intimacy. The Totenbaum stood at the crossing of earth and sky, the wooden axis around which the family, the village, the cosmos revolved. In that presence of the dead, life ripened towards its own transparency. Our age has exiled this intimacy. The motorized burial industry, as Heidegger called it, replaces the ritual of return with logistics. Death has become a service, an outsourced operation of hygienic disposal. The modern being, once der Sterbliche, the mortal, capable of dying as death, now merely perishes. The coffin has become a commodity, the corpse a product, the funeral a contract. What was once the threshold of mystery has become an item of consumption. This estrangement is no accident, but the logic of a civilization that recognizes only surfaces. The world of calculation admits nothing that cannot be stored, optimized, or replayed. It flees from death because death resists the algorithm. In the glare of artificial light, the pulse of the cosmos, the erotic rhythm of appearing and vanishing, is stilled. We have mistaken endurance for vitality, accumulation for being. We no longer die, we decay without transformation. To abolish death is to flatten life, for it is through the nearness of non-being that the world discloses its depth. Death is not life's opposite, but its inward curvature, the silent inhalation through which the cosmos renews itself. Without death, there is no destiny, only persistence. No errors, only function. To live without dying is to cease to be alive. The coffin teaches otherwise. It is not an end, but a folding, a return to the invisible current from which form arises. In many living traditions, the coffin is addressed as mother, not as container. It is the womb of reversal, the cradle of transmutation. Within it, the soul is pressed back into the fertile darkness where worlds gestate. To lie within its enclosure is to enter the great circulation of life. The lid closes like a seed pod readying to burst. Thus the coffin and the table are one sacrament. The wood of the forest becomes the body of communion. The body becomes soil. The soil feeds the forest again. Each act of crafting, eating, burying, and remembering participates in the same round. The carpenter's work is metaphysics in motion. His hands joins nourishment and return in a single gesture. Through him, the cosmos performs its rites. Modernity fears the cycle because it undermines the myth of mastery. The rational ego, terrified of dissolution, builds fortresses of light, data vaults, artificial eternities, digital ghosts. Yet every such fortress is already a tomb. The denial of death does not preserve life, it embalms it. When we flee from the abyss, we become the very specters we dread, ghosts wandering through our own machinery. To restore death to its dignity is therefore an act of resistance. The mortal who can die as death is the one who truly lives. To die consciously is to awaken to the errors of existence, the current that binds creation and decay in mutual adoration. Only the mortal can love, because love is always love for what may perish. Only the mortal can create, because creation requires risk, sacrifice, and loss. The coffin is not morbid, it is sacred pedagogy. It teaches the humility of grandeur, of participation. This is why ancient peoples placed the dead close to home, beneath the hearth, within the courtyard, under the root of trees. The ancestor remained present. Their nearness guarded the living. Their murmurs entered dreams. To be human meant to dwell within that dialogue. The coffin was never a wall. It was a resonant chamber through which the voices of the departed could sound. The house, the grave, and the forest were variation of one architecture. We have lost this communion. We banish the dead to distant fields, seal them beneath marble, disguise their presence with flowers and euphemisms. The world grows thin when the dead are forgotten, for they are the invisible density of being. Our rituals of mourning are brief and hygienic. They protect us from the vertigo of continuity. Yet, the ancestors remain. They press against the membrane of time, seeking recognition. They do not demand worship, they crave participation. They long to breathe through us again, to see through our eyes, to feel sunlight through our flesh. When we remember them, they are revived within the circulation of the living. In our initiatory current of the cosmic gnosis, as well as it would be in Vodou, Haitian Vodou, of which I'm an initiate as well, the cult of the dead is not metaphor, but practice. The coffin is the dwelling power and the matrix of renewal. To approach it in reverence is to step into the river that unites all form. Through offerings, trance, and remembrance, we reopen the channels between the living and the unseen. Our exhalation becomes the ancestors' inhalation. As we descend, they rise. Life is revealed as reciprocity, a breathing between worlds. This reciprocity once shaped every gesture of daily life. The living spoke not only to one another, but to the stones and roots, to the ashes under the hearth, to the bones resting beneath the threshold. To eat was to invite the dead to the table. To plow was to awaken them in the soil. Even silence was a form of speech, for within it the generations met and mingled. The dead gave counsel in dreams and warnings in the creak of wood. The living answered with libation, story, and memory. Together, they wove the moral fabric of the world. When this fabric tears, ethics collapses into regulation and love into contract. The communion of the living and the dead is the true polity of being. Every enduring tradition has known this truth. The necropolis of Egypt, the Roman household shrines, the Voodoo Gede, the ancestral tablets of Asia, all affirm the same intuition. To live without a dead is to exile oneself from the cosmos. The cult of true and flesh remembrance is not nostalgia, but ontology and practice. It reestablishes the vertical axis through which meaning descends and fertility ascends. In this double movement, the coffin becomes a bridge. It is the tree of death that roots in soil and flowers in heaven. And when the living forget, the balance of the world falters. The rivers dry in their beds, and the fields bear sterile fruit. To look into the coffin is to look into a mirror. We see our faces multiplied through generations, each looking back from behind the veil. We are the confluence of innumerable lives. Our gestures are their echoes. Their forgotten longings move within our nerves. To remember them is not to romanticize the past, but to awaken the continuity of essence and power. The dead are not inert. They are energies awaiting articulation. They depend on us as we depend on them. Through us, they continue to act, to desire, to become. The body itself is this meeting place, the living shrine in which ancestral fire and personal consciousness coincide. To breathe is to already participate in their afterlife. Behind the coffin's quiet wood stands the image of the Great Mother, the coincidence of life and death herself. In her, every beginning already bends towards its ending, and every ending swells with future birth. She is the dark soil from which all forms rise, and the silent mouth that receives them back again. The coffin is her symbol, at once cradle and grave, vessel of immersion and of return. To the initiates of our gnosis, the coffin is not made by human hands alone. It is the mother's own body, the curvature of her womb in which the cosmos continually gestates herself. When we are laid within its walls, we are folded back into her embrace, dissolved into her substance, there to be reshaped by the rhythm that first breathed us into being. She is the martyr of the demonic world, the power that unites the rot of earth and the flowering of sky. Her laughter is thunder, Her milk, the black rain that seeps through the roots to feed the seeds of worlds. In the mysteries, the initiate enters, sometimes symbolically, sometimes literally, the coffin as a return to the mother. The descent is not punishment, but consummation. What is buried in her becomes potent. Every germ must rot before it lives. The coffin's darkness is the alchemical nigredo where the gold of a chthonic consciousness is formed. Those who fear her call, this is the ending. Those who know her call at home. Thus the Great Mother is not only giver but taker, not only nurse but devourer. In her the opposites dissolve. The smile of birth is the same as the smile that closes the eye. Her love is absolute because it allows nothing to remain separate. To resist her is to stiffen into the loneliness of spirit. To yield is to awaken as her child and her sacred food. This is the meaning of the initiatory death, to be consumed by her so completely that one's boundaries become the pulse of the world itself. The coffin, then, is her altar. Every board sings with her heartbeat. Its fragrance of resin and soil is her perfume. When the adept lies within, he feels her breath through the wood. When the lid shuts, her darkness unfolds like wings. From that union arises the new vision, the night consciousness that sees life as a perpetual rhythm of eating and being eaten, of love that devours to create. Modernity, estranged from her, has sought the sterile father of abstraction, pure light without depth, order without decay, but a world without the mother is a world without renewal. The soil, the night of death, turns to desert. The child who will not return to her womb becomes the ghost of his own inventions. To embrace the Great Mother is to embrace the fertility of endings, the voluptuous generosity of dissolution. In the cosmic gnosis, to serve the Mother is to acknowledge the coincidence of all things. She is life that includes death, one ceaseless rhythm in which birth flows into decay and decay into birth. Her black heart beats through the coffin's grain. When we call the coffin Mater, we confess the path of return is also the path of birth. Within her cradle grave, the cosmos dreams itself anew. The initiate who understands this walks henceforth as her emissary, tender towards the perishing, fierce in devotion to the living, reverent toward the mystery that moves through both and binds them in one eternal rhythm of becoming. From the womb of the Great Mother arises Eros, the dark sun, her radiant sun. He is not a child of separation, but of saturation, the burning core of her self-love made visible. Where the coffin gathers death and life into stillness, Eros sets them in motion. He is the rhythm itself, the trembling of the world as it touches itself in endless fascination. Eros is the demonic magnetism that weaves all beings into one shimmering fabric. He moves through the veins of stone and through the blood of lovers. He bends roots towards one another beneath the soil and steers the stars to dance. His power is neither moral nor abstract. It is the immediate carnal sanctity of relation. To feel Eros is to feel the world's hunger for union, the unending exchange between the visible, the invisible. In the cosmic vision, Eros is the mediator between the living and the dead. He sanctifies the pact. Through him, the living offer space for the dead within their own flesh, and through him, the dead pour their blessings, their memories, their demonic current back into the living stream. This is not metaphor, but metabolism. The living body is the shrine where the ancestors are fed. Our blood is their language, our breath their exhalation. Eros binds the two worlds by desire. Desire here is not a lack, but desire here is overflow, the surplus that life feels for its own dissolution. It is through this ecstatic gravity that the martyr draws all creatures back into her embrace and gives them again as form. Every act of love, every creation, every mourning, every decay participates in this cosmogonic eros, this pulse that is at once the sun's fire and the coffin's cool darkness. He is therefore the true priest of the Totenbaum. Where he moves, the rigid becomes supple, the separate becomes relational. Eros is the sanctifier of decay, for he reveals that to dissolve is to merge, to burn is to belong. Through the coffin's darkness, another revelation dawns, the mystery of the abyss. For the coffin is not merely a return to the mother, but the threshold to the unfathomable ground that underlies her. The abyss that births gods and worlds and devours them again. When the initiate surrenders to depths, when the last light of identity flickers out, what awakens is the child of the abyss, the demonic self that knows no separation. To become such a child is not to escape the world, on the contrary, but to perceive its true texture, an endless web of interpenetrating forces, each alive, each relational, each whispering the same refrain, I am Legion. The coffin is the doorway to this recognition. Its stillness is the gaze of the abyss turned inward. In its darkness, every name dissolves, and what remains is pure relation, a consciousness without center that moves like tide between all beings. The initiate who passes this gate returns transformed, not purified in the moral sense, but made porous, able to feel the pulse of every creature, to hear the hymns of stones and rivers, to speak with the dead in the language of vibration and dream. To be a child of the abyss is to live as a demonic being, neither angel nor beast, but a node of awareness through which the cosmos rejuvenates itself. And in such awakening, the fear of death is consumed, for the self is known as temporary rhythm in the great orchestration of Eros and Mater. The abyssal vision reveals that even the smallest act, touching a leaf, lighting a candle, speaking a name, is a participation in the infinite reciprocity of existence. The coffin teaches this by stripping away illusion. It shows that there is no above and there is no below, only depth without bottom. And within that depth, the unbroken circulation of life and death, memory and becoming. The child of the abyss lives this knowledge, and as the watcher and the caretaker, for to feel the totality of relation is to suffer and to rejoice in everything simultaneously. Such is the demonic self, radiant, wounded, and whole. For the coffin reveals a final secret, that death is a mode of life. It is the pulse of transformation and the inward motion through which the cosmos perpetually renews itself. The Totenbaum is the emblem of this rhythm, a seed pod that bursts again and again into form. Stars burn out and seed new galaxies. Forests fall and rise. Memory fades only to bloom as vision. The same current that dissolves the flesh fashions new worlds. What we call end is the hidden half of Genesis. The initiatory mysteries do not argue this, they perform it. The adept lies in the coffin not to mimic death, but to awaken to the living darkness that underlies all things. In that darkness shines another sun, the black radiance that consumes without destroying. Its light strips away the brittle shell of the self and reveals the demonic eye that sees through the night. When the lid opens, the initiate does not return from death, but realizes she has never truly lived until she died. To live henceforth towards death is to live ecstatically, to stand always beyond oneself in the act of becoming. The mortal who accepts this vocation becomes a vessel through which both ancestors and unborn speak. Her heartbeat sounds in both directions. She walks as a living memorial and a creative promise. Each breath carries the rhythm of the whole. Modernity has forgotten the sacred orientation. It mistakes survival for progress, permanence for grace. But survival without metamorphosis is the most lifeless state of all. The soul withers when it ceases to shed its skin. To awaken the errors of existence, we must again court the abyss, feel the sweetness of impermanence, and allow ourselves to be devoured by the powers that sustain us. Only the one who has died into life can no longer exploit existence, she can only revere it. This reverence manifests as art, as ritual, and as the tender care of earth and body. Every act of creation is a small resurrection. The artist, the lover, the mystic, the craftsman, all labor within the coffin of finitude, shaping mortality into forms that momentarily blaze with eternity. The Black Forest carpenter knew this. When he planned the boards for table and coffin alike, he joined nourishment and return in unbroken gesture. His work was not utility, but it was liturgy. From this insight arises the moral heart of mortality. To acknowledge death is to acknowledge kinship. We cannot possess what is dying, we can only tend it. The cosmos itself is such a trust, a vast, wasting beauty that calls for witness rather than mastery. To be mortal is to respond to this call, to watch, to listen, to love fiercely because nothing endures. And what of the dead themselves? They are not gone. They have become atmosphere. They move in the air between thoughts, quicken our intuition, guide our hands. When we speak through them. Our voices are the instruments. This is the true immortality, not the persistence of a self, but participation in the unending exchange of living and dying. In the realization, the coffin opens into cosmos. The lessons of the Totenbaum is therefore gratitude. Every breath is already an offering. Every heartbeat is a consent to perish. When we feel that consent consciously, wisdom begins. The culmination of the path is silence, the stillness in which all boundaries dissolve and the living and the dead share one breath. Then we know that to die is to give, to live is to receive, and both are movements of the same current, the same arrows that binds the stars. I want to conclude with a poem by C.F. Meyer. It's my last invocation for the evening. Oh, we the dead, far more are we than you on the earth, than you on the sea. We plow the vast croplands with tireless deeds. You reap with your scythe what has grown from our seeds. And what we achieved and what we begun, it pours still above in the streams of the sun. Our loving, our hating, our pains, our gains, they beat still above in death-endured veins. Thank you.